Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are continuing our exploration looking into AI-era Islamic and Abrahamic wisdom,
Mm.
and we're really focusing on, well, probably the most crucial topic for modern life, personal transformation.
Absolutely essential.
Our mission here is to, go beyond just basic self-help. We want to extract these prophetic strategies, these really deep methods for radical self-mastery.
Yeah, we're looking for that ancient internal framework, the kind that, well, serves as the root for any kind of lasting external success.
Exactly. It's indispensable, this kind of deep dive, for anyone trying to navigate the 21st century, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And the sources we've gathered, they're pretty much unanimous on this. Self-mastery isn't just like a nice bonus trait.
Right.
It's the prerequisite, the absolute foundation for any meaningful leadership, any real impact.
So if your own internal world is chaotic,
Mhm.
driven by impulse maybe, or too susceptible to desire, what the traditions call the nafs.
Then anything you build on the outside, any success, it's ultimately built on sand. It's likely to self-destruct eventually.
That makes sense. And the material we're looking at, it provides a really clear, actionable blueprint. It's modeled through the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Mhm.
So our conversation today, it really centers on three core questions for you, the listener. First, why is mastering the self the most sort of radical form of power, especially now in this age of distraction?
Good question.
Second, what specific historical disciplines actually form the bedrock of this kind of transformation? Like, what did it look like day to day?
The practical stuff, yeah.
And third, maybe most importantly, how do we actually operationalize these profound ancient principles? How do we use them to conquer the unique challenges of our world? The algorithms, the hyperconnection.
Right. Where to even begin? Well, to start, I think we have to really internalize the foundational idea.
Yeah,
The real battlefield is always internal.
always inside.
Yeah. Victory doesn't start with conquering things out there. It begins with conquering the self.
Okay, let's unpack that definition of strength straight away, because it really does challenge the conventional wisdom about power.
It really does.
The sources cite this teaching, and it just completely flips the script on what we usually celebrate, like in business or politics. It says, "The strongest among you is not the one who overcomes others, but the one who controls himself when angry."
That single sentence shifts everything.
Yeah.
The focus moves from external conquest, physical, financial, whatever, to internal psychological control.
And what's fascinating is just how practical that definition is, isn't it?
Oh, totally. External victory. It's
Yeah.
always limited. You beat one opponent, fine, but the next one's always around the corner.
Right.
But when you establish control over yourself, particularly over those immediate, really potent emotional reactions like anger, well, that victory is instant. It's repeatable.
And it builds something lasting inside.
Exactly. It builds a resilient internal structure. It literally builds character.
I think this is just so crucial for modern leadership.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a CEO or a public figure, even a parent, if your reactions are predictable,
Mm.
if people know you're ruled by your temper or your fear or, your desires,
Yeah.
your long-term credibility, your influence,
Yeah.
it just instantly compromises.
Precisely. This ability to sort of manage the ego, to choose a response instead of just reacting, that's the bedrock of sustained trust.
Makes sense.
If your internal state is chaotic, then everything you build externally, it's resting on shaky ground. It's like, I don't know, having a high-performance engine but running it on contaminated fuel. It just won't last.
And this framework, it connects perfectly to the hyperstimulation of our modern world, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The sources basically define self-discipline as the most radical form of power in a society that is, let's face it, fundamentally engineered for addiction.
Engineered for addiction. Wow.
Think about it. We're constantly bombarded by dopamine hits, right? That craving for social media validation, the endless personalized AI feeds. They're designed specifically to capture, hold, and, monetize our attention.
So the world is actively trying to control our focus, our energy, our wallets,
Mm.
by targeting those weak spots, the nafs.
That's the mechanism. So to consciously choose restraint, to choose moderation, to intentionally say no to that immediate gratification, that becomes the ultimate countercultural act.
It's like reclaiming sovereignty over your own mind.
It is. It provides a level of control that, frankly, technology often aims to strip away.
So if you can control your focus, control your reaction to all that external temptation,
Mm.
you are, by this ancient definition, fundamentally powerful.
hmm It's a level of autonomy that, honestly, I think few people realize they even possess. Or maybe they realize they've already surrendered it.
It's the difference, like you said, between being the programmer and being the program.
Yes.
Which brings us right to the prophetic model of discipline and simplicity. Because this isn't just abstract philosophy, is it? The sources present it as a really detailed operational blueprint for daily life, one that systematically strengthens the will.
Absolutely. When you look at the historical record, the prophet's lifestyle, peace be upon him, it was a very clear, tangible model of self-discipline. And it was based on this doctrine of simplicity.
What did that mean in practice?
It meant radical humility, and moderation in basically all material matters. How much food was consumed, the type of clothing worn, overall possessions. The goal wasn't really poverty for its own sake. It was freedom from the entanglement that excessive consumption inevitably creates.
That must be incredibly challenging for our society today. I mean, we're so consumption-driven. Materialism often defines status. The discipline around food, for example, that must be one of the hardest.
Oh, food discipline is foundational. The emphasis in the tradition was always on balance, the practice of never overeating, leaving space, as the saying goes, for breath and water.
Why is that so foundational?
Because it serves as the most immediate, the most physical training ground for self-control. It's like the first hurdle on the path to self-mastery.
Okay.
Think about it. If you can't restrain yourself from that immediate physical pleasure eating past the point of satiety, how can you possibly train the willpower muscle needed for harder things?
Like what?
Like restraining yourself from anger in a really difficult meeting, or from greed when a tempting business deal comes along, or from, taking ethical shortcuts when you're under pressure.
That's a powerful analogy. It suggests the health of the soul and the discipline of the body are really deeply linked. Mastering that lower appetite prepares you for the higher, more complex ones.
Precisely. And it completely counters the modern culture where immediate gratification isn't just tolerated, it's actively, aggressively marketed to us as some kind of right.
Yeah, you deserve it.
Exactly. And the sources emphasize that this moderation, this simplicity, it's critical for endurance. Simplicity is actually a strategic asset. Well, when you're under intense external pressure, and historically, the early Muslim leaders faced almost constant existential pressure, you simply cannot afford the energy drain.
The drain from what?
From entitlement. From physical sluggishness caused by overeating, from the internal chaos brought on by just having too much stuff and too many desires pulling you in different directions. Simplicity creates a resilient foundation. It's like a mental firewall, It sustains the mission.
Okay. And a major part of this structure, this discipline, something that acts as a continuous rhythmic training ground. That would be the spiritual structure of daily prayer. Right?
Absolutely. The 5 daily prayers, they act as constant anchors throughout the day. They are systemic interruptions to the momentum of materialism and distraction.
Interruptions, I like that.
Yeah. 5 times a day, you're pulled back. Pulled back from the noise of the world, from whatever task you're doing, to refocus on a higher objective purpose.
So it reinforces routine, commitment.
Routine, commitment, and crucially, humility. It breaks the ego's momentum. Think about it. It requires conscious, disciplined effort every single time. It serves as this continuous recalibration of your priorities.
So if we kind of synthesize this first core section, the lesson seems really profound. The prophet's universal influence, his enduring legacy. It wasn't built on material opulence or complex external structures.
No, not at all.
It was built on his profound personal simplicity and his internal discipline.
Yes. Real authority, real influence, the kind that's meant to last. It has to be founded on moral and spiritual substance. If that internal foundation is crumbling under the weight of excessive desires or, entitlement,
then the external structure, no matter how impressive it looks,
it's destined to fall. It's just not sustainable.
Okay, so moving now from that external structure, the discipline, to the necessary internal cleaning process, let's dive deep into tazkiyah, the purification imperative. This sounds like active work.
Oh, it is. Tazkiyah, the purification of the soul, it's arguably the most critical concept for transformation. And it's defined so clearly in that pivotal Quranic mandate. He has succeeded who purifies it, and he has failed who corrupts it.
That sounds pretty stark, binary almost.
The sources frame it exactly like that. It's an absolute binary. There's no sort of passive maintenance setting for the soul. You're either actively working towards purification
Ah.
or you're passively allowing corruption. It's like the spiritual equivalent of, I don't know, internal decay, or maybe like a computer system constantly running on old, buggy legacy software. It just degrades over time without active effort.
And the corruption we're talking about,
Mm.
it's not just obvious outward immorality, is it? It's more insidious.
Exactly. It's those corrosive enemies within, the things that destroy internal peace. Tuskia seeks to actively remove specific blockages.
What are those main blockages?
The spiritual blockages identified again and again are arrogance, kib, greed, tama, and envy, Assad. And they're deeply intertwined.
How so?
Well, arrogance blinds you, right? It stops you seeing your own need for change. Greed drives that excessive consumption and material attachment, which then compromises your ethical judgment.
And envy.
Envy poisons your ability to appreciate your own blessings. It steals your internal peace because you're constantly fixated on what others have, their status, and it often fuels that whole digital comparison culture we see everywhere today.
Yeah, the Instagram effect.
Precisely.
So if Tusky is this intentional process,
Mhm.
like scraping these pollutants off the internal hard drive, how was it actually done? What were the practical daily tools the prophet used constantly? This feels like the core of that spiritual detox we need so badly in the AI era.
The practices were really threefold, and they were continuous, built on intentionality. First, Dikar, remembrance of God. Second, Istighfar, seeking forgiveness. And third, structured reflection.
Okay, let's break down Deeker. Remembrance of God. What does that actually involve?
At its core, Dikar is intentional focus. It's about consciously pulling the mind out of the noise, out of all the fragmented external distractions, and centering it on purpose and presence.
That's a phenomenal parallel to today. Deeker isn't just passive ritual, it's like the original proactive redirection of attention.
Exactly. If the modern algorithm wants to hijack your focus, Dikar is the conscious act of reclaiming it.
But here's the thing. If the modern mind is already living in this state of perpetual distraction, how do you even begin to access the stillness needed for Deeker? It sounds hard.
It is hard, but it starts small. You have to consciously incorporate friction into your habit.
Friction.
Yeah, like instead of automatically reaching for your phone the second you have a quiet moment, you consciously substitute that impulse with an intentional phrase, a thought, a moment of remembrance. The sources are clear. Consistency, even in tiny amounts, is way more valuable than sporadic, intense efforts that you can't sustain.
So it's about building a muscle.
Absolutely. Deeker trains the mind to resist that impulsive chase for the next hit of novelty.
Okay. And what about Istighfar's seeking forgiveness?
Yeah.
You called it an emotional and spiritual reset button. What's the psychological mechanism there?
Istighfar is fundamentally an act of radical accountability. It demands humility. It demands acknowledging your own imperfections.
And the psychological benefit?
The key benefit, I think, is that it actively breaks the cycle of justification. The ego loves to justify mistakes, right? To blame external circumstances, other people.
Oh, yeah.
By making seeking forgiveness a continuous daily practice, you proactively dismantle that defense mechanism. You prevent small ethical slips from hardening into really destructive character flaws. It forces you to admit, okay, I messed up, and I take responsibility for cleansing the internal record.
Wow. So for you listening, the application here seems really clear. We have to build these daily routines of spiritual detox.
Yeah.
I mean, if we spend an hour or 2 hours a day scrolling, consuming, we absolutely need an intentional, proportionate counter practice, time dedicated to actually cleansing that internal hard drive, engaging in deek, practicing humility through istighfar.
Because transformation, it's never just a state of being you arrive at, it's a verb. It requires continuous, active effort against the spiritual entropy, that kind of natural decay that the nafs constantly generates.
Speaking of the nafs, let's delve a bit deeper into emotional intelligence and restraint. Because the sources are really explicit about these three primary impulsive traps the self sets for us, and how mastering them is key to leadership.
Yes. The three major traps of the nafs are identified pretty consistently as anger, lust, or maybe better framed as excessive, uncontrolled desire and greed.
Anger, lust, greed.
These are those immediate, raw, impulsive forces. If they're left unchecked, they completely derail rational decision-making, ethical behavior, and frankly, sustained relationships.
So true emotional intelligence, in this framework, it starts with self-restraint against these specific forces.
That's the starting point, the capacity for self-restraint against these primary drives.
Okay, If self-mastery is defined by restraint, we probably need to look at some historical examples.
Mhm.
Case studies where that restraint was tested under extreme, maybe even existential, pressure. The sources point to the incident at Taif and various run-ins with Bedouins. Can you paint a picture for us? We need the details to really grasp the depth of this.
Right. The Taif incident, it's one of the most powerful illustrations of perfect forbearance, I think. The prophet, peace be upon him, traveled there seeking refuge, seeking support.
Instead,
Instead, he was met not just with rejection, but with extreme violence. The children, the mobs of the city, they literally chased him out, throwing stones at him until, as the records detail, his sandals were filled with blood.
wow.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to even imagine. It was physical assault, intense public humiliation, betrayal, failure, all compounded. The natural human reaction would surely be justified anger, rage, a call for retribution.
Absolutely, and that's what makes his response so extraordinary. According to the accounts, the angel of the mountains offered to crush the people of the city between two mountains as punishment.
And his response.
Restraint and profound empathy. He responded with a prayer, essentially a prayer of hope, saying something like, "Perhaps God will bring forth from their descendants generations who worship God alone."
So it wasn't just control. It was a total compassionate override of a perfectly justifiable impulse for revenge.
Exactly. It demonstrated a mastery that went beyond just suppressing anger.
And the incidents involving the Bedouins, what were they like?
Those often involved, insults, extreme rudeness, sometimes demands that bordered on physical threats, and often conducted in very public settings, almost designed to provoke a reaction.
And again, the response.
The historical accounts consistently show the prophet maintaining composure, often smiling, meeting their aggression with patience, sometimes even giving them what they demanded just to de-escalate the situation. In every case, the response was one of absolute forbearance, or Hillman.
I think most people listening would agree that that level of restraint just seems almost impossible in our high-stress, low-patience world today. How does someone even train for that kind of high-pressure control?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? It confirms that his emotional intelligence wasn't just some polite facade he put on.
No, it was ingrained.
It was an ingrained, almost unbreakable discipline, and it was forged through repeated, daily, small acts of self-control. You don't just suddenly achieve the Taif level of restraint overnight.
So how do you train?
You train by managing the small, everyday irritations, the traffic jam, the rude comment online, the unexpected delay that throws off your schedule. The sources teach that if you consistently practice restraint in these minor situations, like choosing not to overeat, remember, then when the major crisis hits, the muscle memory of forbearance is already established. It's there.
That's the difference between emotional intelligence being a skill you kind of pull out when you need it
Right.
versus it being your default state of being.
Precisely.
This raises a really important point for modern leaders, modern public figures. True leadership isn't shown when things are easy, is it?
Not at all. It's demonstrated precisely when the pressure is highest, when the temptation to retaliate or indulge the ego or lash out is overwhelming.
A reactive leader. They're actually quite predictable, aren't they?
A reactive leader is predictable and therefore often dangerous or easily manipulated. A leader who practices self-restraint, however, they become strategically unpredictable to their opponents.
And profoundly reliable to their followers.
Exactly. Because their actions aren't dictated by impulse, but by principle and purpose.
So how do we bridge this ancient wisdom to, say, modern psychology? What tools are suggested for managing these powerful, impulsive desires in today's world?
Well, we've already seen some clear connections. The sources suggest practices that directly mirror what modern psychology often calls therapeutic interventions.
Like what?
Like mindfulness, which really echoes that intentional focus required in GEEK. Or journaling, which is essentially a form of structured reflection and self-accountability, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
And crucially, something very relevant today, digital fasting. This is a modern adaptation of that principle of physical restraint, but specifically targeting the addiction to instant digital dopamine hits.
That move to digital fasting feels essential. If we accept that the nafs is now stimulated, not just by food or physical desires, but by the endless stream of novelty delivered through a screen.
Then restraint must be applied there too. If we don't consciously control the input, the notifications, the endless feeds, the emotionally manipulative headlines,
And we can't control the output.
we can't control the output, our mood, our focus, our productivity, our internal peace. Digital fasting introduces necessary friction. It puts space between the desire and the access.
And it's supposed to be difficult.
Exactly. It's intentionally difficult. And that difficulty is the workout for the self-mastery muscle.
Okay. Now let's talk about building those inner anchors, the resilience factors, the foundational elements that keep you stable when the inevitable storms hit storms of life, work, digital chaos.
Right. The sources highlight three primary anchors that seem to work together, synergistically. The first is fasting, which we've touched on.
We talked about it as discipline, but you're saying its function is broader.
Much broader. Yes, it strengthens willpower. It's that conscious, daily exercise in delaying gratification. It proves to yourself, I am in control of my needs, not the other way around.
And it also deepens empathy, right? That external connection.
Exactly. By consciously choosing to experience that state of mild hunger, mild thirst, you actively break down the barrier between your own, maybe comfortable state and the intense, continuous need felt by others. So it's a dual benefit, internal strengthening, coupled with external moral expansion.
Okay. The second anchor you mentioned is the night prayer, tahajjud. What's its specific function in building resilience?
So tahajjud takes place during the deep quiet of the night when the world is asleep. Its role, fundamentally, is connecting the individual to a higher, overriding purpose.
How does that build resilience?
When the world is silent and you're alone, choosing to engage in that intentional act of worship, it recalibrates your entire life. It centers it around something immense, something enduring far bigger than the day-to-day stresses, the insults, the quarterly reports, whatever it is.
So it shifts your perspective
Right.
from the immediate crisis.
To the eternal context. This practice establishes an unshakable inner commitment, a deep sense of perspective that trivializes many worldly anxieties.
And then the third anchor, the simple but maybe profound power of gratitude. Shukr.
Yes, gratitude is highlighted again and again as a fundamental practice for building deep psychological resilience. Think about it psychologically. Gratitude is the direct antidote to the nafs's natural tendency towards dissatisfaction, envy, and greed.
How?
It reframes scarcity into abundance. By intentionally, consciously focusing on what you do possess spiritually, materially, relationally, you build this powerful psychological firewall, a defense against the internal corruption caused by constantly focusing on what others have or what you feel you lack.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If we synthesize these three, the willpower strengthened by fasting, the higher purpose connection from night prayer, and the psychological resilience built through gratitude, you're essentially constructing the perfect internal architecture needed to withstand modern external chaos. Is that fair?
I think that's a great way to put it. The synthesis provides those necessary inner anchors. Anyone navigating the sheer volatility of the modern economy, or the instability of global events, or even just the persistent scrutiny of social media, you need this level of internal stability.
Because your center can't be external anymore.
Exactly. It can't be dependent on good news or market stability or digital applause. It has to be internal and it has to be unshakable.
Which brings us, I think, to our final and maybe most pressing section. Applying all this profound wisdom to the specific systematic challenges of the AI era. How does the digital world we live in systematically undermine the very core disciplines we've just spent time discussing?
Well, the primary AI era challenge, the one that directly attacks our ability to perform tazkiyah and maintain discipline, is constant overstimulation.
Tell me more.
AI and the platforms it powers, they basically run on novelty, on instant feedback loops. They are designed to keep our prefrontal cortex perpetually engaged, constantly seeking the next dopamine hit.
And the effect?
It fundamentally weakens focus. It prevents the necessary stillness required for deep thought or reflection, and it just kills self-control over time. If you're constantly stimulated, you lose that quiet internal space.
The very space where genuine self-conquest actually happens.
Precisely. Without it, we just become reactive. We end up merely following the next shiny notification, the next outrage trigger.
And the other massive challenge. You mentioned the ego earlier. The internet seems custom-built for ego problems.
Oh, absolutely. Materialism, sure, but also our engagement with these curated virtual identities, the perfect social media profile, the optimized professional brand, even avatars, they all directly contribute to what can only be called a catastrophic inflation of the ego. We are constantly, relentlessly seeking external validation. Likes, followers, shares, comments, digital applause. This validation directly feeds the arrogance, the kibrit that tazkiyah aims to eliminate. The virtual self risks becoming a kind of idol, demanding endless maintenance and attention.
And undermining the humility required for real self-conquest.
Completely.
So, okay, if the platforms are designed to control us through our desires, through our nafs, then the antidote, the ultimate freedom, it has to be self-conquest.
It is the ultimate form of digital sovereignty. The sources present this really powerful concept. Self-conquest equals freedom. Freedom from external algorithms and platforms controlling your personal behavior.
Think about that. If an algorithm can predict your next click or your next purchase or even your next emotional outrage better than you can.
Then are you really making a choice, or are you simply acting out code written by someone else for their benefit?
Wow, that raises a really powerful, maybe uncomfortable question for you, the listener. If we don't actively control our focus, our intentions, if we just let the stream carry us along, are we still running our own life program? Or are we becoming sophisticated marionettes, just dancing to someone else's code?
It's a critical question, and the only viable modern strategy, it seems, is intentionality. We have to apply these models, discipline, purification, directly to our digital lives.
Which requires what? What are the practical steps?
It requires two key things, I think. Two practical, intentional shifts for the AI age. First, intentional digital use. Meaning flipping the script. You use technology as a focused tool for creation, connection, learning, rather than passively consuming whatever it decides to feed you.
How do you do that?
It involves things like time-boxing your usage, setting actual physical boundaries for your devices, like no phones in the bedroom, introducing friction, maybe delete the social media apps from your home screen, make it harder to just mindlessly open them. The goal is to make consumption harder than creation or connection. It means defending your focus vigilantly.
Okay, intentional digital use. What's the second step?
Purposeful life design.
Okay.
This means actively architecting your time and energy around your defined higher purpose, whatever that is for you, rather than just drifting through life reacting to external stimuli, notifications, and demands.
And that requires saying no.
It requires a strategic no list. Intentionally rejecting activities, commitments, even digital engagements that you know drain your energy or divert your focus away from the things that really matter. The activities that facilitate tazkiyah, discipline, connection to purpose.
This has been, well, incredibly dense, but absolutely essential. A real deep dive into prophetic self-mastery for today. Let's try and summarize the critical knowledge nuggets, the key takeaways we really need to internalize before we wrap up.
Okay. First, I think the overarching theme has to be self-mastery isn't optional for success. It's the root prerequisite for all sustainable leadership, all lasting achievement. If the self is chaotic, the mission, whatever it is, will inevitably fail under pressure.
Got it. Prerequisite, not a bonus. Second,
transformation isn't passive. It doesn't just happen. It requires the combined continuous effort of purification, tazkiyah, plus discipline in daily life.
Yeah.
Especially focusing on conquering those inner enemies. Arrogance, greed, and envy.
Continuous effort. Okay.
And finally, maybe a sobering takeaway, particularly relevant for this AI era we're in. External success, wealth, fame, followers, achievement, it's ultimately non-sustainable if self-conquest hasn't happened first. If your internal architecture is weak, the external structure will eventually be compromised. By temptation, by volatility, by burnout, something will give.
Right. So what can you, the listener, do right now to begin this process, or maybe deepen it? We strongly recommend adopting that daily soul check journal practice suggested in the sources. It sounds simple, but it's powerful.
It's a simple internal audit. You do it at the end of the day. It doesn't need to be long, but it absolutely must be honest.
Other questions.
Ask yourself 3 focused questions. Was I patient today? Meaning, did I maintain forbearance in traffic or when provoked online or dealing with difficulty? Second, was I grateful today? Did I intentionally count my blessings, actively countering feelings of envy or dissatisfaction?
And third,
was I humble today? Did I accept correction gracefully? Did I acknowledge a mistake without immediately jumping to justify it?
patience, gratitude, humility. A daily check.
Yeah.
And beyond that, maybe commit to one practical discipline right away.
Yes, don't try to boil the ocean. Don't try to fix everything at once. Commit to one specific practical discipline. Maybe it's a specific digital detox, no screens for the hour before bed. Or commit to adding just a short period of focused reflection, lyric, during your commute instead of scrolling news feeds. Or maybe test your willpower by implementing a small intermittent fast 1 day a week. Just build that self-mastery muscle intentionally.
Start small, but start now.
Exactly. Start small, but start now. Consistency is key.
Okay. And as we leave you to reflect on all of this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final, foundational, maybe provocative challenge. A question that really summarizes our entire conversation today and gives you a clear, ongoing framework for your own self-evaluation. Am I controlling my naps, or is my naps controlling me?
Asking that question honestly, regularly, that internal audit changes everything. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.